Hello YouTube, Michael R. Schulteis here, author of The Rostoval Saga, coming at you today with a review of The Descent by Jeff Long. This is a delightfully dark and spooky fantasy, or perhaps science fiction fantasy, one of my own favorite finds from 2021 in fact, that revolves around the discovery of a subterranean world of labyrinthine passageways and corridors, a world peopled by a race of savage, horned humanoids, monstrous cannibals. In fact, what you find out very early on is that these beings are responsible for the stories of devils and demons that you find in real world religions. So it's essentially the real world, but we find out that there are these horned humanoids that have inspired stories of demons. And this is a story, I would describe it as humanity coming face to face with a primeval threat, an ancient enemy that forces us to rethink our own history and even our place in the cosmos. In fact, what Jeff Long has accomplished with this novel is a story that combines some elements of horror, but also adventure and discovery, and I think a rather intelligent commentary on the general sense of the human condition. True, it is a story about descending into the abyss and discovering monsters. But it is also, with a nod to Nietzsche, a story about discovering our own capacity for internal monstrosity. On that note, one of the places where this very dark story shines brightest is characters. There are a few different point of view characters, but I'm going to talk about two. They have the most page time, they're the best developed, and they're quite compelling. So first of all, there's a mountain guide, and he is captured by these subterranean humanoids, these hadals, as they're called, rhymes with cradles, and is subsequently able to become free again, and ends up joining an expedition down into the subplanet, as it's called, this real world, an analog for hell, as it were. He is fascinating because he ends up inhabiting two worlds. He starts out at the extreme fringe of human experience, ends up becoming a part of the society of these beings, and then comes back, and then helps other people go down and investigate. Very fascinating character. I like the sense of conflict, and I think he put a human face on what humanity was up against with these beings, and it was just very, very well done. Now, the second character I want to talk about is a nun who is very smart, very independent-minded, has a good sense of history and languages, makes a linguistic discovery that ends up cueing people into these beings early on, and then becomes part of a scholarly organization that is trying to make diplomatic contact. She also joins the expedition, and it gets very interesting, and I won't say too much more. I want to try to avoid spoilers here. Long's prose is another thing that I appreciate about this book, although I do feel there were some parts that were a bit heavy on exposition. On the whole, though, he is a master at painting pictures with his words. You will feel the descent into the darkness of a subterranean world, and you will experience the mounting sense of horror, the brooding, ominous atmosphere that permeates so much of this book, not to mention moments of pulse-pounding terror. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't talk a bit more about these hadals, these horned humanoids, the key world-building element in this story that really makes it particularly interesting. I was going to say shine, but that doesn't work here. They are an other capitalized for all humanity. He's very unambiguous about this. They're a monstrous species who has enslaved us and preyed upon us, and ends up looking quite a bit like us. I don't mean physically so much as morally. In many ways, they are us, without a sense of grace or beauty. And I think if you read the story, you'll agree with where I'm coming from here. A lesser author might make a hash of this, but I think Long makes something wonderful from this, something thoughtful. And I think you have to experience it for yourself. I'm not going to say too much more about that. So, let's just sum up here. Who is this book for? Who is it not for? Well, if violence is not your thing in books, gore, body parts, blood, stay away from this book. But if you hear everything I've said, and this is in fact the most black metal book that I've ever read. So if that sounds pretty good to you, if that sounds really awesome to you, this book is definitely for you. I would call this a thinking person's dark science fiction fantasy tale of adventure and suspense, with some notable horror elements. I have to rate it 5 out of 5 stars. I couldn't put it down, and I haven't shut up about it since. I tell everybody who will listen about this book. So, if that sounds good to you, go check it out, and I'll put the link for my books too. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll hope to catch you next time. Bye for now.